All right. Welcome back, Record Central on News Central. Don't worry, we are not lost in transition. We're just trying to find perhaps a lost language, as you may. The language of Nsibidi originated in this, southeastern part of Nigeria as far back as, the 1,600 years ago. And once thought to be lost and forgotten, Nsibidi has come under the spotlight in the last few years. A system of symbols and pictures from the ancient tombstones in Calabar to the walls of the Wakanda throne from, that big movie from Marvel back in 2018, the Black Panther. Now, Nsibidi is a complex but beautiful art form surrounded by mystery, and it certainly deserves all the attention that it should get. Well, to really give us more of a context in this one, to delve into it, the peculiarity of the lost language with an artist who is using it to create beautiful art forms doing his work and professional life. We're joined by Ndukwe Onuoha, who is an award-winning copywriter, creative director, and poet. He recently released his spoken word album, Nwa Chukwu, with album art inspired by Nsibidi. So welcome, Ndukwe. Morning.
Good morning.
So tell us about Nsibidi, first of all, because I'm sure many people are just hearing about this for the first time.
Oh, Nsibidi is a style of writing. Employs logographs, ideographs that was peculiar to the now areas we now know as eastern, southern parts of Nigeria.
Okay.
So you're talking about the Efik people. You're talking about all the way to Nwa Chukwu, all the way to even some places in Imo, I think, and then
so it's south and southeastern parts of Nigeria.
Yeah, but some parts of those areas we know as that. And interestingly, thanks to the slave trade, you now have some part of it in Cuba. So
is it thanks or no thanks?
Well, no thanks, eh?
Okay. So it's quite a complex. These are letters, or these are beyond inscriptions, right? They have meaning, don't they?
Oh, they do. I mean, this is why, again, the ideographs, they convey meanings, sentences, phrases, actions, rather than just like our modern day alphabets that transfer sounds.
Okay. Is it particularly spoken or just written?
It's written.
It's written.
Yeah.
Okay. So how did you first, encounter? Because you do this you have this as part of your work.
Yeah.
So how did you first encounter this, ancient, lost lettering system?
For context, I'm from Abriba in Abia State.
Okay.
And
that's Eastern Nigeria.
That's Eastern Nigeria, and I grew up in Aba, still in Abia State. Abriba, as an Abriba person, history has taught, or we do know that we migrated from, what you would call today, some parts of Cross River and the rest. So what some people call the Efik Igbos, if you may.
Okay.
And that has always, Nsibidi on its own has been part of the culture because it was part of secret writing used by a particular society called the Ikpi Society, which goes across these places. So growing up as an Abriba person, during festivals, I always saw these patterns. Now, growing up in Aba as well, you see, interestingly, in some churches where you will have Nsibidi inscriptions on the doors.
Well, so Roman Catholic or just normal local?
No, some local churches, Presbyterian and the rest.
Okay.
But again, so these symbols were there. Again, as a child, I really didn't make much sense of them. But then I had always been surrounded by these inscriptions because these are, they are part of our history. They are part of who we are.
Well, why are they not being talked about? Why now? And I'm sure people picked up, these signs and inscriptions when they watched Black Panther.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's almost unfortunate. Like everything, most things.
If it's not commercialized.
If it's not commercialized, and if it's not commercialized from outside.
From the West.
So it seems that we need the West to endorse who we are before we stand up and beat our chest about it. But again, beyond Black Panther, I really need to give a big shout out as well to our client, I'm in advertising,
okay.
and you know, so when we had the opportunity to work on the Hero brand, for instance, and we shared the idea of having to use Nsibidi, and they thought, look, this is a part of our culture, isn't it? So let's make use of it. So now the conversation has started again, in no part or in many parts, thanks to the willingness of a Nigerian brand to say, look, we're going to take hold of our culture and we're going to make it a part of who we are.
So what are the chances, you know, that perhaps this can now become a form of communication tool, not just, you know, advertising or art or literature or something that's basically on the side? Can it be mainstream?
I think it's all about the willingness of the people to do so. There was a time when learning Chinese was out of the question, or learning Mandarin was out of the question for a lot of people. It's
still out of the question for me.
You know, but then suddenly, you know, there are a lot of people who are saying, look, I want to teach my kids Mandarin. So why can't we apply the same fervor to what is ours? But again, to the question of whether it can be brought back, there are a lot of organizations who I know that are looking at tapping into our culture and, you know, how we can expand it. Organizations like Society of Igbo Professionals and others, there's a lady called Yvonne Banefo who organizes an annual Igbo conference in the UK and here. And you see there's a push by people like this to make sure that our culture, you know, whether written or spoken, is never forgotten.
So some of all this, you know, I don't know, can I call them phonemes or calligraphs or letterings or, phonemes, let me use basic phonemes. They have, you know, it looks like they have cross-cultural ties with maybe some bit of old Egyptian calligraphy and some other cultures. Do you think, how does it overlap?
So here's the thing. I saw a book once and the title of the book was A Line in the Sand.
Okay.
And that was just basically talking about how some guy came to the Middle East, drew a line in the sand and said, okay, this is Iran, this is Iraq, this is whatever country. And it's the same for Africa, isn't it?
Yeah, Berlin.
Scramble for Africa, the Berlin Conference. Some people sat down with a map and said, this is West, this is North. And so if you look at that, it makes sense that Africa or Africans interacted with each other a long time ago before artificial borders were enforced on us.
Or created,
So it makes sense again to see that there's some sort of overlapping languages, overlapping writings,
and letterings and carvings, because this is clearly not anything with that has to do with voweli or consonanti, and you know, I, A, E, I, O, U, and the likes, which is what you get with your colonial heritage of you know, English, German, French, Spanish. These are the nomadic languages. I have no clue of linguistics, but you do know that these are quite related in some way. And you always ask, okay, they are all uniform in one thing. A is A, E is A, and all that. What about the African text? I've always asked myself that question, you know, where is the African text? Because Russian is not vowel and consonant. Mandarin doesn't look anything like A, E, O, you know, or any other, what other languages again, you know, apart from the European languages, you know, and Japanese doesn't look anything like, you know, that. So can we say that this is, you know, that African text that I am looking for, or some of us, you know, are aiming for?
Yeah, it is very much. There's Nsibidi, there's Uli, you understand?
Because Igbo, IGBO it's not my lettering.
No, it's not.
Yeah,
it's not. I mean, there's
it's not my lettering.
There's actually an Nsibidi inscription for Igbo. You know, you understand. So the Nsibidi for as a whole language structure makes nonsense of the insinuations. I studied history and international relations, and one of the things that got me upset in class one day was to read, I don't remember the name of the human being that said Africa is a dark continent and, you know, darkness is not the subject of history. It's nonsense. Because Africa has been enlightened, you know, for a long time.
Before Lord Lugard.
I mean, what did he discover? You can't discover what is. You understand? But it makes a lot of nonsense of the assertion that there's no documented history of Africa.
That we didn't have text and law before.
Because there's an Nsibidi script that actually details a court hearing. You know, and this is, you know, this was written. So that we didn't write stuff with ink on paper doesn't mean that we did not document.
Yeah, did not document.
But what just happened, and this is also a part of history that no one talks about, is that in order to continue to perpetuate the lie that civilization was brought to Africans, a lot of our historical artifacts, a lot of our records were destroyed first, and then, you know, we were now suddenly, you know, told.
Let me ask, before we have to go on, Ndukwe Onuoha,
yes.
So you have Igbo lineage. Yeah. Do you write in Igbo?
Oh yeah. Well,
do you speak Igbo?
I do.
But you write in English. You're taught in English, right?
Yes.
Do you think in Igbo?
It depends.
I think I'll leave it there. Can you think in Nsibidi?
Oh, no. So Nsibidi is not...
No, I'm asking because, and this is important for every African, if you're colonized, whether you're from French, Portuguese, English, or German, you write in German, you write in English. I write in English, but can I can speak my language, but can I think in my language? Even if I can write my language.
The thing to note there is that Nsibidi translates Igbo thoughts, you know, to a written form. Okay. Or if you're Efik, you translate those Efik thoughts to a written form. Okay. And that is even the beauty of Nsibidi. Okay. The fact that it's a cross-cultural script that if I am Igbo and you're Efik, you can still understand because it's, you know, so it's even more sophisticated
than meets the eye.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Ndukwe Onuoha, for giving us bits of insight. Well, if you enjoyed watching this video, click here to get more of it, and don't forget to click here to subscribe.